So yeah, we learned about this program, like Connie said, about a better chance, and they help students of color apply to independent schools. And we really didn't know anything about independent schools because, like Connie said, at that time for us, they were about $37,000. So we went on a tour one time, just kind of for fun, because I wanted to see what you get for $37,000. And it's all the bells and whistles and everything's beautiful and new. But we just thought, oh, wow, this is really cool. And just kind of left it. But we applied to the program, went through the whole program, and they help you build a strong application and, work with you on testing and interview help and just practicing and that kind of stuff. So at the end of the day, my son was able to apply to a number of schools. The program is free, and he got into some, but he always knew, in our family, we always are very transparent with our kids. Number one, you got to get in. Number two, we need financial aid because we cannot afford anything like $37,000. So that was our first experience with financial aid. We did go, I personally went to public school, my husband went to public school, but our kids were at a small Lutheran school. So they went from Lutheran to independent, and they really were on a track to go, because the kids at our small Lutheran school usually went to Catholic school or Lowell, which is like the really cool, really academic public school in San Francisco. That's not quite, now it's lottery. The whole, I'm sure you heard that they changed Lowell to lottery this year. So anyway, they would have probably either gone to Lowell or to Catholic school. And so we did the program, and like I said, he got in, and it just opened our eyes to a whole nother world. And we didn't really, I mean, we knew those schools existed, but we never thought we would send our kids to them. So, and it's all really because of financial aid. So now I am an advisor for a company called Financial Aid Navigator. And I really got involved with Financial Aid Navigator when my second son got into University of Chicago last year, and we got zero financial aid, like nothing. And the school's like $75,000. So mistake number one I made was not realizing the high school financial aid process and formula is different than the college. The process is similar, but the formula they use in college is different. So I just thought, we have 3 kids in independent schools, we get substantial financial aid, more than half when I say substantial. And I just assumed the colleges would know from where we are and what we're paying that we need the same. And it didn't translate. As you can see, like I said, we got zero. So my niece was in a better chance at the time. This is last year. And I was talking to my brother, and he's like, we just saw this financial aid presentation from this guy named Pierre. And Pierre's the founder of Financial Aid Navigator. And it turns out he was the director of financial aid at my son's school, at Cathedral School for Boys, but he had retired a couple years ago. So I didn't actually know him when we were there, when he was there. But so this is his company, and he awarded aid to families like me for many years. And now, and he, during that time, he also had his business where he helped families get aid. So he really knows the system from the inside, from the school side. And as a parent himself, he has 3 kids, and he also received financial aid for many years. So that's how I got involved with Financial Aid Navigator. So we met with him, we hired him to help us. And at the end of the day, we got a pretty good chunk for U Chicago. Not half or anything, not like $50,000 or anything, but much more than the zero we had in the first place. So maybe 6 months after that, he asked me if I'd like to be an advisor for him. And I was really conflicted because I'm a life coach and I wanted to really put my energy into that. and I'm a teacher, first grade teacher, but this is my last year, really my last 7 days actually. So I'm really excited because through A Better Chance and doing information sessions for the organization, I realized how much I love working with parents, not so much their children. So I'm leaving teaching this year to focus on my coaching business, helping parents who want to improve their relationships with their teenagers, and focusing on doing my financial aid advising for families. So that is pretty much a tiny bit of background on me. And so we can dig into the financial aid stuff right now. And then if there's any time at the end, I'll share a little bit more about my 20 years of parenting experience. Just to be fully transparent, I want to direct you to a document that my talk today is coming from, and I'm pretty much going through it almost exactly, but adding like my real life experiences. So I don't want you to feel like you have to take notes or have to remember stuff, because really everything is going to be right here on Financial Aid Navigator's website, and it is a free resource. So I put that in the chat. And if you want to kind of follow along, or if you want to listen, that's totally up to you. Back to my notes here. So at Financial Aid Navigator, and I hesitated to join him in doing this, but Pierre's mission is, or Pierre believes, that every child deserves a world-class education, and that no child should be denied an education because of money. And that really resonated with me because of the aid we've gotten. And I just I've always been very passionate about education and school. I'm a teacher. And I was really crazy with my kids when they were little, but we can get into that later. But today's just a super casual conversation. And if you want to get a lot more like meat or more details, Pierre's having, he does monthly webinars, and there's one coming up June 2nd. And we're trying to catch people like before they go on vacation, but maybe they're gone already, or, the school year is ending at different times. But I'm also going to send that, just paste that link in the chat if you want to sign up for that. It's a free webinar. It's about an hour, and he's very detailed. And yeah, it's a great introduction. Well, this is the introduction. It's a great, more detailed overview. All right, so anytime you have a question, just jump in. It's hard for me to just feel like I'm talking and talking and talking, because even at school, like my kids will respond or interrupt me. Of course, they're little kids, but I'm really excited that you're here and you want to get some information, because I really wish I had been to something like this 6 or 7 years ago, and I wouldn't have made the few mistakes that I did. I just knew I knew more about the process. I just took it for granted that, like I said, because we got so much in the independent schools in San Francisco Bay Area, we thought, oh yeah, for sure the colleges are going to think the same, and they don't. So many colleges have different endowments, and private colleges, public colleges, there's just that's a whole nother world out there. So so yeah, quite honestly, I'm really here to help you avoid the mistakes that I made. And I appreciate you being here tonight on a Friday night. As a parent, I love doing stuff like this on Friday night, because I feel like it's the end of the week. All the sports stuff is done. There may be stuff on the weekend, but it's just a good little chunk of time to get some information, some insight. And I think you're here because you're trying to get something for your kid, right? And that's why I love A Better Chance, because I met parents like Connie and all the other parents there. They're trying to get something for their kid and trying to help them take advantage of some opportunities that are out there. So I'm going to start with some terms and definitions. So this is not meant to be interactive. I'm not going to ask you questions like, who knows what financial aid is? Like, I'm just going to tell it because I think you probably would prefer that. If you want it to be more interactive, please let me know. But people have their cameras off, so I don't think they're going to be dying to participate and answer questions like that. So financial aid is money to help pay for school, basically. Most people associate financial aid with college, and I did too, until a better chance. And I realized that there's money for preschool, elementary school, middle school, high school. So at the high school level, I think the parents in here may have younger children, but at the high school level, the aid is grants, which is basically free money from the school. And that's called institutional aid. And the only reason I tell you that is for college, it's different. But at the high school level, it's grants, it's free money. It comes from the schools. And there are different organizations that help the schools process your information. So there's one called TADS, one called SSS, one called FACS, one called FAST, and they all do the same thing. They basically, so the schools hire third-party companies, and we fill out the application, and we punch in our numbers and we submit it, and then the organizations process that and give the number back to the school. And I'll get to the number in a minute. For college, financial aid can be grants, which is free money, again, work study, or loans. So in college, there's two terms to know. FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And like I said, that covers grants, work study, and loans. So grants is basically free, free federal aid, federal money. Free grants, meaning nothing has to be paid back. Work study is when basically they guarantee your student a job. So my son now has work study in Chicago. He's working at the library. So that was part of his financial aid package. They put $3,000 under work study, which means they think if he gets work study, he should be able to make $3,000. And they don't tell him what to do with it, or it doesn't go towards tuition. He actually gets the money as though it's a regular job. So good thing he's very frugal. And the last thing is loans. And there are private loans called Parent Plus loans. There's lots of loans all over if people want loans or need loans for college. And the other term, so FAFSA was the first one for college, and the CSS profile is the second one to know for college financial aid. And that stands for College Scholarship Service Profile. I had to look that up because I didn't know, but that's the online application for non-federal student financial aid. And just to translate that, if a school requires the CSS profile, they have some money. Typically, that's the private schools. If you apply to UCs or state colleges, you're not going to need to fill out the CSS profile. But private schools, the schools that cost $70,000, $75,000, $80,000, they'll have a CSS profile, and typically they have endowments, some larger than others. What I'm finding out, you could actually look at schools before your kids are even thinking about applying, and you can see what schools meet 100%, or you can see what percent of the need they meet. So that's something no one ever told me, and I didn't do that, and one thing I wish I did. So but that's getting a little too detailed, I think. So
I have a question. I'm sorry, Angela.
uh-huh.
Do you apply, so the FAFSA or FAFSA, you apply once to all of the public schools. Is that the same as the CCS or CSS that you mentioned?
The CSS profile, you can also list multiple schools. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a common app for financial aid.
Got it. Thank you. And is that all the states in America? I don't know.
have
So
the
you
private
mentioned
school.
that, yeah, you mentioned that your son goes to one in Illinois. So is
Right.
that the same?
Right. So my other
Okay.
son goes to Fordham in New York. So they both,
Okay.
yeah, take the CSS profile,
Okay.
CSS profile. So
Cool.
the number that these companies generate, they generate what's called the expected family contribution. Now I've heard expected family contribution or estimated family contribution. It really means the same thing. It just means how much the school, it means according to the formula, how much the school or how much they're telling the school they think you can afford. So it's really important to get your EFC, to know your EFC. Most people have no idea what their EFC is. I didn't know what my EFC was. The first time we went through A Better Chance, our EFC was, so we have 3 kids. It was like $65,000 after we put in our information. And we're like, we live in San Francisco. We both work full time. We're normal people. How do they think we can afford $65,000? Another thing I learned was they divide it by how many kids you have. So we had 3 kids. So that was $22,000 ish. And we thought, man, that's still a lot of money. But we just went with it because we were going along with A Better Chance and just we are going to see what would happen. And that number is not, it's not like a hard number. It's where they start. So they did offer us aid at my oldest son's school that was that we paid less than the 22,000. When you divide it by 3 is 22,000. So that's just where they start, and I guess they consider other factors. Anna?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is that the whatever it is, the
EFC.
that thing, yeah, EFC, is that, do they calculate that like they say for college, it's this much, or is it a per year number? I'm curious.
It's per year.
Per year. Okay, wow.
Per year. Yeah, per year. So it is in your very best interest to know your EFC. And if you go to our website and fill out our questionnaire, you can get your EFC for free because you fill it out. This is the whole process that everyone does if they work with Financial Aid Navigator. So you go to the website, create an account, you fill out your information. It's not super detailed, but enough to get your EFC. And we take the number and we call you and talk to you. And sometimes people say, oh, it says that we can afford $10,000. We have $10,000. That works for us because we work with, people all over the country. So like we had one family in Atlanta and he's like, oh yeah, I have $9,000. That'll work. I said, great. Just good luck. This is, if you need help later, call me. And sure enough, he actually called me a couple months later and said, can you look this over for me? I'm a little bit confused. And I didn't plan to go off on this tangent, but it's such a good story. I'm going to tell it. So he called me back a couple months later and he was asking me about his numbers. And I said, well, if you had signed up to work with me, I could help you. And he said, well, is it too late now? And it wasn't too late because it was before he turned in any of his applications, any of the financial aid applications. So he became one of my clients and he just, decisions just came out, I think in April for Atlanta, and his daughter is going into 6th grade and she's going to, I believe he said it's the #1 school in Atlanta. And he's so excited because he lives in a really bad part of Atlanta in a really terrible public school, he said. And he said, this is just like a dream come true. And he is receiving 94% financial aid. So he was really excited. And I was so happy to help him and support him over the last couple of months. So he knew his EFC. He thought it was manageable. And then when he really looked at his numbers, and it turned out that it really was, he really needed more aid than he thought. So anyway, that was one success story. But going back to our program here. So the financial aid process is really complex. It seems very simple. You just fill out the form and, turn it in. Lots of parents, they fill it out, they turn it in, they don't get what they need, and they just drop it. And there's really more you could do. But you also should know that it's really rigid and it's counterintuitive. So if you go into it using your normal knowledge, like when you do your taxes or apply for car loans or your mortgages, you'll likely hurt your case in terms of getting the maximum financial aid you can. Other things you should know: the schools are the ones that give out the money. A Better Chance doesn't have money. Of course, there are scholarships that can come from organizations, but the big financial aid dollars that, the 20,000, 30,000 kinds of grants, those are from the school. And financial aid planning is really also about protecting your retirement and not, nobody wants you to go broke and take money out on the equity line to send your kid to school, that kind of thing, because that's just irresponsible and crazy. But some kids, they want their kids to have the education so badly that they will do it, right? So we're trying to help families plan ahead and preserve your assets so that you come out of high school and college and have some savings left, some retirement savings left. So parents need to know how to ask effectively. It's something that we're not used to doing, asking for money. It's hard enough for some of us to ask for help, but then to go ask for money, it's just a position that we've never been in before. So it's really helpful to have someone to help guide you. Like I said, nobody wants you to go broke to send your kids to school or for kids to graduate with enormous debt coming out of college. Most schools are nonprofit institutions, and their primary mission is to educate students. They know their tuition costs are out of reach for most families, and more students need financial aid. Any questions before keep going? Okay, so one of the first questions most parents want to know is, do we qualify? And we can't tell you if you qualify if you just say, oh, I make 200,000 and I have one house, and like we can't give you real helpful information without you filling out the questionnaire. And the questionnaire is not super, it's not asking, it's not as many questions as the real financial aid applications, but it is enough information to get you an estimate. So if nothing else from today, I would highly recommend going to the website and filling that out for your own knowledge so you know it. And that's totally free. You don't need, I'm not trying to sell you anything. So the estimated family contribution is really important. And the financial aid, a financial aid supported tuition is the only transaction where you must expose all of your resources before they can tell you what to charge you. I found personally, when I was filling out the applications on the SSS, the one for high school, they asked so many questions. What kind of cars do you drive? What year are they? How much you spend on vacation every year? And I started to feel like, well, if we spend $3,000 on vacation, are they going to think like we can afford, to send our kids in this school? But, you just have to be honest. And I think they're just trying to figure out what kind of lifestyle you have, maybe. But that's not to say if you have a BMW that you can't get financial aid, right? People have all these thoughts in their head and all these just assumptions. But if you truly want to know if you qualify, you need to apply.
I want to add that we had applied to Crystal Springs, which is over in Hillsborough, and they have another campus in San Mateo. And I attended their financial aid slash just that it wasn't meant to be financial aid. It was more talking about the cost of the school. And that's also around the $50,000 range.
Mhm.
And they had a scenario where this couple, it was like a really simple one, just to not to scare anybody off, but they have like, they made $500,000 and they still got aid. So they were like, don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to fill it out. And then there were still parents there, like you said, that they want to help their kids to get into the school. And the thing is that one of the things that they talked about is that some schools will accept you and don't give you aid, or they would, and then there's other schools who would only accept you if you had filed for the financial aid. They will only accept you with the aid, because they know that if without the aid that you really shouldn't be going there, because if you didn't have the means to go there, then you it's going to be hard for your family to go. So Crystal Springs was actually one of those families where they separate the two, where they look at the financial aid separately and then the application separately. So if you were had accepted and had financial aid, and if they didn't even have the money for financial aid, they will still accept you. Versus like we also applied to Castleja in Palo Alto, and they said that those are together for them. So that was something that was that I learned that, and there was a family there. They were like, we're thinking about not applying for financial aid, but it could be hard for our family. And the people there were like, you should do it together. And but we have two separate teams and we don't look at them together. So there's advantages and disadvantages for both. That's something that that stuck out with me. Like somebody with $500,000 still got aid, and it's like, well, what do I have to lose? Like we don't make $500,000, so yeah.
Yes, sometimes people think that their chances of, well, let me just go back to the schools. Schools say that they have two different departments and they look at admissions separate than aid, but I think sometimes they are together, but they say they're separate. So it's just good to be aware that really though, at the end of the day, if you might need the aid, like people wonder if I apply for aid, and I know someone who did this after the fact. He's like, so we applied to the school, we didn't get in, and the dad was saying, I bet it's because we applied for financial aid. I'm willing to pay that thing now. And I'm thinking, well, did you really need aid, or were you just trying to see if you would get it? Like, what do you mean you're willing to pay it? Like, it's really, the question is, if you're looking at high school or even private independent middle schools, if you have $50,000 a year, if you have $200,000, that's the alternative to not applying, right? Like, why would you not apply for aid if you know you can't afford it? So it's just, I think people have a lot of thoughts in their head about different things. Maybe their kid deserved to get in, or they really wanted their kid there. And I don't know how you're all of a sudden willing to pay it from having applied for financial aid. So let's get into the formula a little bit. So it's a complex formula that goes into coming to your EFC, and there are over 18 variables, all affecting the results differently. I don't know the formula, but I know about what the formula entails. So it's not like something I know or can like punch in numbers. So the four main things are parents' income, the adjusted gross income on a sliding scale between 14 and 47%. Parents' assets are roughly 6%. And student income, so if your kid has a job, 50%. So if your kid has a job, they should give you all their money and hold it for them. Otherwise, it's 50% that they take into consideration. And then student assets is another 25%. So those are the main things. And just knowing those 4 main things can really help you begin to organize your finances to your advantage. And your goal and our goal to help you, if you work with us, is really to generate the lowest possible EFC. So lowest possible adjusted gross income, minimize any assets or income in your student's name. And it's also really important, like I said earlier, the EFC is for the whole family. So if you have one child, I have friends with one kid, and they're like, we're not going to get anything. So it's advantageous for more than one person in the family to be attending college at the same time. But that's not really something you can be like, oh yeah, I'll go back to college, right? So we talked about the next question, which is, will their chances of being accepted be affected? But yeah, like the paper here says, the key question is, can you afford to pay the full cost? If not, it's really important that you say so from the beginning and you apply for financial aid, because you never know. And if you read a school's mission statement or their values, they want diversity, a diverse community. And the first thing typically we think about is ethnic and racial diversity, but they also want economic diversity. For example, my kids go and went to independent schools, and there are lots of full paying families there. And there are some financial aid families like us, and they need us and they need other financial aid families, because if the kids who pay full tuition, if they're just around each other and their families are always talking or into the same things, then they don't really learn about other people and how other people live, and vice versa. So it's really important for the schools to have diversity in different ways. And I think the schools are really, at first I thought, oh, we'd be so lucky just to get into that school. But over the years, I really came to realize, and I think one of the A Better Chance program directors or program managers before said this in one of his meetings, the schools are really the lucky ones to get our kids. So I started, when he said that, I'm like, yeah, that really makes sense. Like, our kids are not like begging to get in, they're really lucky to get us too. So it's just, now that my kids have gone to independent school, I'm very biased, and I will admit that they've just been afforded so many opportunities and a great education. So academic application. So when you apply to the school, there's the regular application, the academic application, and that's different than the financial aid application. If the regular application, you get in and you're done. Financial aid, you have to reapply every year. So if your circumstances stay pretty much the same, you can expect to get the same percentage of financial aid every year. And that has been true for us for the last 7 years. We've been getting financial aid at all the schools. So tuition does go up every year, but the percentage stays the same. So we might pay a little bit more, but it never shoots up like 5,000 or 10,000 or anything. So once you know your EFC, you'll have an idea if you're eligible for tuition reduction. If not, then you need to plan to cover the full cost of attending on your own. Either way, confronting these high tuition costs for the first time, parents realize it's time to start some real financial planning or retirement planning. Let's see. I think that is pretty much it for my overview. Are there questions?
You mentioned you had made some mistakes before. Can you share those?
Yeah, so one of them I told you was just thinking that we'd get a lot of financial aid and we didn't. Another one was just incredible. So one thing you should know, in college, when you apply for financial aid, everything is in the student's name. So when my son is applying, everything has his name on it. I guess because maybe they're getting to be adults, or for whatever reason, that's how college applications are. But if you have the kid fill out the financial aid, like that's just not a smart thing to do for your 17 or 18-year-old to fill out a financial aid application. So I filled it out subconsciously knowing that I'm supposed to be my son, but I didn't put him on it. So the application looked like we only had 2 kids. So I think that was a huge mistake. But it was confusing because if I'm supposed to be him, are you supposed to list yourself? I was confused, even though I thought I was on top of it and I didn't wait till the last minute. Somehow I left my kid off. So that could be why we didn't get any money, or it could not. I don't know. But that was one important thing, and not knowing, like I said, not knowing that the colleges have a different formula. It's called, there's 2 formulas, institutional aid and federal aid. So there's 2 different formulas, and not knowing my EFC, not planning ahead, because I just thought, oh, I don't know. It's so crazy for me to think now, like how could I be so trusting that these schools are just going to continue this wonderful financial aid we had at the schools in the Bay Area. So that, I can't think of anything else, but those are the main things.
Was it different for your first son and the second son? In terms
of what?
So Forum is a private, right? And that's your oldest son? So
Yeah, it's a Jesuit school.
okay. So they have different aid available.
It's different in terms of they don't have as much money as University of Chicago. So they don't give as much.
Interesting. But then you just said that your second child didn't get any aid, right?
But after we appealed with Pierre's help, we got more than the first one got.
Okay. Okay.
And
so there is also that too. Like I don't know about appeal program or appeal process. Okay. Great.
And with the older one, we appealed and we got like $2,000.
Oh, geez.
I was like, wow. But he was already there. He's been there for 2 years. So they know, like, you're not going to leave. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think there's a couple questions on the chat.
Oh, I can't see it here.
What's the timing to start thinking about financial aid for middle school? Gita was asking.
Depending on really, I honestly feel like you can't start too early, because there are things you can do depending on how old they are and kind of where to put your money, quite honestly, so that it won't count against you. So if your kid's applying for 6th grade, they're going to apply in 5th grade, right? They're going to apply for financial aid in 5th grade. So they're going to ask you for the taxes from 4th grade, possibly 3rd grade. And if you didn't know what you could have known, those things can hurt you, right? If you had money here that you could have put somewhere else, kind of thing. So I honestly would say if you're applying for 6th grade, I would think about it in 3rd grade. And, it's just awareness that just continues. And we don't work with families just like one time. We work with families from the time they hire us all the way through their financial aid years for all their kids. So when I first started working with Pierre was last year, and I can ask him and get his advice anytime, all the way until my 8th grader is done with college, which is not for 8 more years. So is there another one? Did that answer the question financially for middle school? 3rd, 4th grade, 5th grade, 5th at the latest, but even coming to us in 5th grade, applying for 6th grade, it's still better to have someone look over your application and give you advice before you do the real application. Once you put in the application, if you get into the school, they already have all of your information. So if the next year you make some pretty big changes, they might wonder like, well, how did that happen? Or, so I would say the earlier, the better. How far in advance of college would you want to figure out your EFC? So college is very similar. So they apply in early 12th grade, but they look at your taxes from, I believe it's 10th grade. So they go like 2 years back. And when my sister-in-law was doing that, I just thought she was silly and crazy and, but she really did her homework, and her kid went to Berkeley, and they didn't pay a whole lot at all. She was a stay-at-home mom. So the other thing I want to mention is, so of course there's the state schools, there's the UCs, and there are the private schools. If you can get into a private school, $70,000 to $80,000 school sounds ridiculous, right? But if you can get financial aid, you could potentially pay less than UC, which is maybe 35 now, I think. So it's not just, oh my gosh, we're not going to pay $80,000, because you could get aid to actually pay less. It really depends on your family situation, all those factors, that the income, and if you have property and assets kind of thing. So it's really hard to give more detail. But I would say at least by 10th grade, if you want to plan ahead. Maybe 9th, if you just, it's on your radar. But the earlier, the better. I really wish I knew. I knew what I know now before all my kids. I have 2 in college now, like I said, and 1 going to high school. So.
Okay, hello, Angela.
Hi, Cathy.
Hi, hello. How are you? Thank you so much, for hosting this today. I think this is very helpful. I just have a question. I think my question is more focused on the more school and high school application.
Mm-hmm.
For college, I think that totally makes sense, because I think college is more diversified, right? But I just know, for the middle school and high schools, I'm in the Bay Area. I know they are all very competitive, just like the middle school. I heard Connie's kids go to. Do you think if I need financial aid in the in the application, do you think that might lower they got accepted to the program? Is there just thinking loud there?
The program of a better chance, or the schools?
The school, just to say, if I just say, for example, if I put in my application, I'm thinking about getting financial aid, I think from the school, do you think that might lower their chance comparing to, other applicants who does not need financial aid?
It depends on the school. So if you don't apply for aid and your kid gets in, will you be able to pay? That's really the question, right?
Yeah. I just feel if I, push myself really hard, I might be able to, but it's always nice, right, to have financial aid. I think that's a fair point. It just really depends on the affordability. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
But they typically, they always encourage families, if they think they might qualify, to apply. So, and you can come to the website, like I said, and enter your information into the questionnaire and already get your EFC. So if you know, it might feel different if you know your EFC says you could afford 10,000 versus 40,000, or, you know, it might make a difference to you. That might help you to do the questionnaire to get the EFC, because that's what the schools would see. That's the same number.
Gotcha.
Are very similar.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think to Angela's point, I went to different sessions of the different schools when they had financial aid or talk about affordability to the school, and they tell you like, they tell you, like I was saying, how some of the schools do look at the financial aid together with the application and some of them don't. And that, I think that makes a difference. And they tell you, like Angela say, they always say, apply if you think you need it, because they don't want you to not be able to pay
Yeah.
in the middle, you know. So yeah, it depends.
Gotcha.
And they have money. A
They
lot
do.
of the schools have a lot of money to help us or whoever needs it. But you need to show that you need it,
Yep.
right?
Gotcha. Thanks. I just don't know, like, if, for example, I think, yeah, I just feel like if it's maybe like there is like another kid who is really similar, maybe like to my kid's case, but maybe they don't need financial aid, are they gonna like prioritize considering that applicant? I just, you know. But yeah, I think I got the, like really to the EFC, then see, depending on the need.
Also with admissions, a lot of times, I know for me, I thought before, grades and test scores are so super important, right? And they're important, but it's not everything. It's really interesting. My older son, straight A's and some activities, but just easygoing, very easygoing, not very intense. He got into more schools than my second son, straight A's, super self-motivated, like super school kid. Like he loves school. Everything is school, school, school. He only got into 1 or 2 schools, different, you know, because they're so different. And the third one, my third son, my kids are super different all over the place, but my third son, he loves to talk. So the first one's a reader. He loves reading and writing. Second one is math and statistics and computer science. My third one, he loves to talk, and he loves people, just loves people everywhere. That's why he's going to boarding school, because for him, the thought of his classmates and friends being around him all the time is like heaven. For me, I love to stay home, but he is so excited to go. And he was not straight A's, and his test scores were not super high at all, and they were actually low. So it's just, they're all very different, and it's not all grades and test scores. It really isn't. I for many years, that's just, I thought my second one, oh, he can go wherever he wants. He's straight A's, high test scores, activities, but it's not true.
No, it's just like a different path, I think, like you said, for like all the kids, because as you said, they are all different.
And the schools want to see the kids do stuff that they really enjoy. They don't, everyone, we used to think like the best thing was to be well-rounded, do sports and volunteer and, you know, just all these different things. But they really like to see kids who, if they like music, they do this for music. They do, you know, they do all stuff kind of related to music or related to, you know, what they enjoy. Anna?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I was thinking about, you know, the elements of the EFC, and I'm wondering if you know how they take into account when so we're in a situation where one of us has a job that is like a normal, like W-2 kind of, you know, there is a salary that is, you know, approximately the same year after year with raises, but like pretty standard, right? And then the other parent has does the kind of work where you get paid a big chunk of money, you get paid nothing for a really long time. You get paid a chunk of money, you get paid nothing for a long time. So I was like, how do do they look across multiple years when they look at like your salary and stuff like that? Because looking at 1 year's salary from year to year for us, if you look
Right.
at both of ours together, could be like wildly different.
Yeah. I think they typically only go back 1, possibly 2 years, but that's something I would definitely tell them ahead of time and not just wonder about it. If you're applying to the school, you ask the financial aid people, and because they have, you know, a financial aid person at all the schools, and because some schools might look at more years than others, but they're really trying to help as many.
Yeah, I was
families
just wondering, like in the standard forms, right? Do you know whether they?
Well, there is a section you can explain something like special circumstances kind of thing.
Okay.
So you can do that. But I wouldn't like keep it. I would make sure to make it known.
You explain it, yeah.
Yeah. There's a question we got a little while ago. Said, what's a good resource to understand the landscape of private schools in the Bay Area and try to narrow it down? A good resource is a high school consultant. I think there was one on here not too long ago, Erin Gevertz, and there's also she worked at A Better Chance, and there's another woman. I mean, I would definitely hire a high school consultant if I were doing this without A Better Chance, because with A Better Chance we had the program and they advocated for us and they helped us. Knowing what I know now, and like Cathy said, it is really competitive in the Bay Area, I would definitely work with someone, because they typically are people who used to work in admissions at schools and may really know the insides of the schools. They could tell you what school is best for your kid. They could possibly advocate for your kid at those schools, and they're different ones. I would recommend Erica Hernandez, because she was the program manager at A Better Chance when Connie and I were going through the program, and I worked with Erica, and she's got her own consulting business now, and she works with families, and she's done it for years, and she doesn't charge $10,000 because some cost a lot of money. So, I mean, there's plenty of, I'm sure you could go to the websites and, you know, go to the, we can't go to the schools now, but talk to people from the schools. But I think the easiest way to go is to hire a consultant. And it doesn't mean you have to hire them for the whole duration for thousands of dollars. I mean, you could just talk to them once or twice for a couple hours and get, I think, a wealth of information. You don't have to commit, you know, your life away or anything like that.
Angela, maybe you can put Erica's information or Erica's name at least. And then Erin, who we had on with the Fun Moms, she also has a free half-hour talk. So if you wanted to just talk with her for half an hour, it's free. And I can put her name down.
Erica's the name of her business is Rise Above Yourself, but I'm not sure if she has a website. Let me see. It's on her LinkedIn page. I'll just link that for now because I don't see a website. Erin actually works at the Millennium School as the high school counselor.
right now?
Yes, she got that
Oh,
job this year. I don't know if she's staying next year. I assume she is though. Yeah,
Okay.
so after A Better Chance closed the office, she got a job at the Millennium School as the high
Okay.
school counselor.
Cool.
So I think you already have the link for Financial Aid Navigator, but I could just put it again, I guess. If you go to the website, if you want to do the questionnaire, if you want to sign up for the June 2nd webinar, there's also one July 21st, I believe. Yeah, you can do that at the website. So there aren't any more questions out there. I hope the rest of you, if you didn't say anything, I hope this was helpful to you. Just hearing the mistakes I made.
Well, thank you, Angela. Is there any other question? And then also they can find you maybe at the Financial Navigator if they were looking for
You know,
more help.
I love working with parents, so I always give my information.
Yes, Angela and I talked while we were applying.
But that's my email.
Definitely very helpful.
And here is my cell phone number. Everyone thinks like everyone's always calling, so they don't call, but no one really is calling, except for people like Connie, who I love to talk to anyway. But
Thank
I don't know why
you.
people are so shy though, because I'm really just trying to help people. Maybe they don't want to impose or, take up your time. But this is honestly what I love to do, is help, work with parents. So anytime you have any questions or if anything didn't make sense, if you're like me, I need to hear something about 6 times before I really understand it. So I know there was a lot of information today. Even with A Better Chance though, I needed to hear that process over and over and over again until I really understood it. So is that Myra?
Yes, that's correct. That's me. Good evening
Okay.
to everyone. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, call me if you want to talk and we can talk.
I know I logged in so late. Are you
Okay.
guys going to be sending any information?
We can. I sent I put some links in the chat, but I really, if you wouldn't just email or call me, we can just chat. That I think would be nice instead of just throwing
Okay, that's
information at
great.
you.
Sure, no worries.
What city are you in, Myra?
Newark, and my daughter attends Kennedy Elementary here in Newark.
Okay. What grade?
She's kindergarten.
Okay, you're really
So
planning
I
ahead.
may be way ahead of the game, but it's always good to get a lot of information in advance.
Yeah, because the years fly by. We're going to be empty nesters in August, in September, before 4 years earlier than we thought. So, yeah, just cherish every moment.
Happen.
So I look forward to talking to you, Myra.
Thank you very much.
Well, I thank you so much, Angela, and this is really helpful. And if there's any questions, please use the information that Angela shared. Or if you have any questions, I can connect you to if you don't have that information. And you can find us on the Facebook, FUNMothersClub.org. And thank you so much. We look forward to another speaker event in the future.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Angela.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I thank you.